Good morning, good afternoon. How is everybody? Hope everybody is doing fine. We are going to continue on our lessons. This lesson is going to be for Thursday or Friday, whichever day you may have me. If you are in block 2 and 3, it will be Thursday. If you are in block 5, it will be Friday's lesson. No matter what block you are in, the assignments are due Sunday by midnight, October 4th. All right, so let's start out. We're going to go and I'm going to show you, this is what you're going to see when you log into Amplify. Okay, we're going to go to 7B, character and conflict. And then we're going to go to Raisin in the Sun, which is subunit 2. We have done lesson 1, 3, 4, and 6. We are now going to be on lesson 7. That is called Pick a Character. Okay, your main concern is in this lesson, you need to pretty much focus in on one character in regards to what they want, what gets in their way, and how they react to trying to get around that obstacle. Okay. We have a common obstacle among all of the characters that we talked about last time, that there's only a limited amount of money. Everybody has that kind of common obstacle. If we go into tab 2, we're going to discuss who these characters are. This is not a continuation of the reading. It really has to do with what we've already read. According to what we've already read in the story, okay, in this question, the check has finally arrived. Prior to this moment, what was the common obstacle faced by all the members of the younger family? So you remember, is it Walter making the decisions? Is it B, having a limited amount of money? Is it C, Beneath is not becoming a doctor? Or is it D, having difficult neighbors? What's the obstacle that they shared? And we just talked about that at the very beginning of the last lesson, Monday and Tuesday. So if you can't remember, go back into the last lesson, into tab 2, card 1, and it will show you the obstacle that everybody shares. Okay? All right. Now we're going to skip over tab 3 and we're going to do tab 4. Okay. In tab 4, think about the first act of the Raisin in the Sun. Which moments do you remember best? Who was expressing that he or she wanted something, and how could you tell? So we're going to think about that whole act that we just did from the beginning, when we just met Walter and Ruth and Travis in the morning, and everybody's trying to get ready to go to work and to school. Travis wanting 50 cents. Ruth said that she can't have it. Ruth's tired. Walter wants to talk about he wants to invest in a liquor store, that kind of thing. All the way through where we meet Benitha, who wants to become a doctor, who has an argument with Walter about it and the money that Mama wants to give to Benitha for the schooling. And then we meet Mama, who's getting the insurance check because her husband died. It's $10,000. She wants to give some money to Benitha and maybe put a down payment on a house. She definitely does not want Walter to go in on a liquor store business. She's against that. All of these things. And then we end up finding out that Ruth is pregnant. They have no room, no money, and they're just really, she's forced to make some decisions that she may not really feel good about, which we find out that she's thinking about getting an abortion. All right, so from that, we're going to go to card 2. Benita, what does she want most of all? Obviously, we know that Benita wants to become a doctor, okay? What does Ruth want most of all? She wants, Walter to have a better relationship with her, okay? She wants to not be tired. She wants to have a better life. What does Walter want? Obviously, Walter wants people to listen to him. He wants to feel important to his family and validated, but he also wants the money so that he can invest it. Mama just wants everybody to be happy. Mama wants, to make sure that she takes care of Benita and gives her what she wants. She also wants Walter to be happier, and she wants, everybody to have a stable environment. Okay, once you fill each one of those in, okay, we are going to go to tab 5. And we're going to go right to card 2. And in card 2, answer these 2 questions to help you brainstorm ideas about your character, then click next. Okay, now you're going to focus in on one character only. Write down the first 2 things that come into your mind about this character, as if somebody were asking you, what is this character like? What is this person like? Describe that character 2 ways, okay? And then what does the character want most? What's that person want most out of life? So when you put this in here, number 1, if you had picked Benita, okay, the first 2 things that you would use to describe her is that she is driven. She's very tenacious. She doesn't give up very, very easily, okay? She really wants to become a doctor, okay? So those things would go into there. Then you're going to click next, and you're going to go to card 3. In card 3, you're going to actually say the character that you've chosen. So that's in the drop-down menu. And then it says, make a new row for each new piece of evidence to focus on exactly how your character responds to each one. So start by looking for a want and an obstacle and fill in the rest of the row for that character. So let me show you what you need to do. If I were to pick Travis, because Travis is not here, okay? And I would want what he wants. Travis wants 50 cents to take to school. Obstacle is there is a limited amount of money. The action is he asks to carry groceries to make money after school. So you're gonna, now it's obviously not gonna be Travis, so you're gonna have to actually use another character. So in the drop-down menu, it would be Benita, Mama, Ruth, or Walter. You're gonna do the same type of thing, but it's gonna be for the character that you pick. Once you are finished with that, okay, you're going to go to tab 6. And tab 6 is kind of like a graphic organizer that we really don't use for writing, but we want to think about in the rain, Hansberry is a raisin in the sun. You're going to again pick the character that you picked on that last page. And then you're going to fill in in a full, like with the sentence starter, you're going to continue that and answer those questions pertaining to what you put in there last time. Describe the character who hasn't read the play. What's this character to someone who hasn't read the play? What's this character like? So if I were to pick Travis, I would say Travis is the character who wants to take Honey to school and be a typical happy kid. Okay? He wants to have his own room, but faces obstacles such as a limited amount of money. Okay. And this is just kind of making things up. I just want you to understand what it's supposed to kind of look like. This character tries to overcome these obstacles by taking what action? Okay. He asks his mother if he can go carry groceries after school. Okay. And then that's it. That's all you need to do in order to fill that in for tab 6. And then we're going to go to tab 7. Tab 7 is actually what's going to be graded along with the solo. So in tab 7 on this exit ticket, particular attention, okay? This is the scene here, this scene 2 is about when Walter comes in and asks if the check came, and from there all the way until when it ends with Walter, saying to his mother that she just doesn't understand why he needs this. Okay. All right. So on the first one, this scene illustrates how the things that Mama wants to be may be in conflict with Walter. So what you're doing is comparing and contrasting what Mama wants to what Walter wants, and understanding that that causes a big conflict between them. Okay. Drag the statements about what Walter wants to indicate how each one is in opposition to what Mama wants. Mama wants the family to be respectful and godly. Okay. And down here, which one would be a directly opposite of that? Walter wants to be rich and successful. Walter wants people to listen to him. Walter wants to own a liquor store. The second one says, Mama wants Walter to listen to his wife. Which one is directly opposite of that? Walter wants to be rich and successful. Walter wants people to listen to him. Walter wants to own a liquor store. And the third one, Mama wants her family to appreciate what they have. Directly opposite is that Walter wants to be rich, Walter wants people to listen to him, or Walter wants to own a liquor store. The second one, what is one action you predict each character will take after this? Okay, so let's say Ruth will not get the abortion, or she will. Anita will take the money that Mama gives her to go to medical school. Mama will put a down payment on a house. Walter will leave and not come back. These are not things that happen, but you can make predictions, okay, based upon what's going on right now, what's going to happen with each one of them. Okay, so that's your exit ticket. Please make sure that you press hand in before we go to the solo. The solo is the second part or the second grade that's going to be assigned for this one. and it is due again Sunday evening. We're going to read the passage, okay? And we're going to go to card 3. All right, so this is where I'm going to read this passage. This is Act 2, okay? And it is Scene 1. And I'm going to read this. You're going to actually meet George Murchison in this scene. So pay attention to what happens with that, because remember when we were watching last week, we watched the movie clip. George Murchison was another friend of Beneatha's that she goes out on dates with because he's rich and he goes to college as well. He is an African American, and so this is that scene. All right, time, later the same day. At Rise, Ruth is ironing again. She has the radio going. Presently, Beneatha's bedroom door opens and Ruth's mouth falls, and she puts down the iron in fascination. What have we got on tonight? Beneatha emerges grandly from the doorway so that we can see thoroughly robed in the costume Asagai brought. You are looking at what a well-dressed Nigerian woman wears, Beneatha says. She parades for Ruth, her hair completely hidden by the headdress. She is coquettishly fanning herself with an ornate oriental fan, mistakenly more like a butterfly than any Nigerian that ever was. Isn't it beautiful, she says. She promenades to the radio and with an arrogant flourish turns off the good loud blues that is playing. Enough of this assimilationist junk. Ruth follows her with her eyes as she goes to the photograph and puts on a record and turns and waits ceremoniously for the music to come up. Then with a shout, "Oh, como gosaye!" Ruth jumps. The music comes up, a lovely Nigerian melody. Beneatha listens, enraptured, her eyes far away. Back to the past, she begins to dance. Ruth is dumbfounded. Ruth says, "What kind of dance is that?" Beneatha says, "A folk dance." Ruth says, "What kind of folks do that, honey?" Beneatha says, "It's from Nigeria. It's a dance of welcome." "Who are you welcoming?" Ruth says. "The men back to the village," Beneatha says. "Where they been?" Ruth says. "How should I know? Out hunting or something." "Anyway, they're coming back now," Beneatha said. "Well, that's good," Ruth says. Beneatha with the record. "Alunde, alunde, alunde, alunya, japup, ajap, tipua, anguso, ayaye, ahaye, alundi." Walter comes in during this performance. He has obviously been drinking. He leans against the door heavily and watches his sister at first with distaste, then his eyes look off, back to the past, as he lifts both his fists to the roof, screaming. Okay, so pay attention that this is like a really different kind of scene, but what we are watching is sort of a comparison now between the brother and the sister, and kind of the things that they want basically make them alike in some ways. All right. Walter says, "Yeah, and Ethiopia stretched forth her hands again." Ruth says dryly, "Yes, and Africa sure is claiming her to own tonight." She gives them both up and starts ironing again. Walter says, all in a drunken, dramatic shout, "Shut up! I'm digging them drums. Move me." He makes his weaving way to his wife's face and leans in close. "In my heart of hearts," he thumps his chest, "I am much warrior." Ruth, without even looking up, "In your heart of hearts, you are most drunkard." Walter says, coming away from her and starting to wander around the room, shouts, "Me and Jomo," intently in his sister's face. She has stopped dancing to watch him in his unknown mood. "That's my man, Kenyatta," shouting and thumping his chest. "Flaming spear, hot damn." He is suddenly in possession of an imaginary spear and actively spearing enemies all over the room. "Oh, coma gostaye." Beneatha, to encourage Walter thoroughly, caught up with this side of him, says, "Oh, como gosaye, flaming spear." Walter says, "The lion is waking. Oh, vmoe. Oh, vmoe." He pulls his shirt open and leaps up on the table and gestures with his spear. "Oh, vmoe," Beneatha says. On the table, Walter's very far gone, his eyes pure glass sheets. He sees what we cannot. He is a leader, he's imagining this, of his people, a great chief, a descendant of Shaka, and that the hour to march has come. Listen, my black brothers, he says. Okomo gosaye, Benita says. Walter says, do you hear the waters rushing against the shores of the coastlands? Benita says, Okomo gosaye. Walter says, do you hear the screeching of the cocks in yonder hills, beyond where the chiefs meet in council for the coming of the mighty war? Benita says, Okomo gosaye. And now the lighting shifts, subtly, to suggest the world of Walter's imagination, and the mood shifts from pure comedy. It is the inner Walter speaking. The South Side chauffeur has assumed an unexpected majesty. So he is dreaming all of this. And if you were watching the actual play, it would kind of alter so that you would see that this is his imagination. Do you hear the beating of the wings of the birds flying low over the mountains in the low places of our land? Benita says, Okomo gosaye. Walter says, do you hear the singing of the women, singing the war songs of our fathers to the babies in the great houses, singing the sweet war songs? And the doorbell rings. Oh, do you hear, my black brothers? Benita completely gone. We hear you, flaming spear. Ruth shuts off the phonograph and opens the door. George Murchison enters. Walter says, telling us to prepare for the greatness of the time. Lights back to normal. He turns and sees George. Black brother! He extends his hand for the fraternal clasp. George says, Black brother, hell! Ruth, having had enough and embarrassed for the family, says, Benita, you have company. What's the matter with you? Walter Lee Younger, get out off the table. Stop acting like a fool. Walter comes down off the table suddenly and makes a quick exit to the bathroom. Ruth says, he's had a little too much to drink. I don't know what her excuse is. George to Benita, look, honey, we're going to theater. We're not going to be in it, so go change, huh? Benita looks at him and slowly, ceremoniously lifts her hands and pulls off the headdress. Her hair is close-cropped and unstraightened. George freezes mid-sentence and Ruth's eyes all but fan out of her head. What in the name of, George says. Ruth touches Benita's hair. Girl, you done lost your natural mind. Look at your head. George says, what have you done to your head? I mean your hair. Benita says, nothing, except cut it all off. Ruth says, now that's the truth. It's what ain't been done to it. You expect the boy to go out with you with your head all nappy like that? So remember, if you remember, Asagai said that, she was making fun of her about mutilating her hair and not leaving it natural. She went and got it cut and left it natural. And people are having a freak attack. Okay, Benita says, that's up to George. If he's ashamed of his heritage. George says, oh, don't be so proud of yourself, Benny, just because you look eccentric. Benita says, how can something that's natural be eccentric? George says, that's what being eccentric means, being natural. Get dressed. Benita says, I don't like that, George. Bruce says, why must you and your brother make an argument out of everything people say? Benita says, because I hate assimilationist Negroes. Bruce says, will somebody please tell me what assimilate whoever means? George says, oh, it's just the college girl's way of calling people Uncle Toms, but that isn't what it means at all. Well, then what does it mean? Bruce says. Benita cuts George off and staring at him as she replies. It means someone who is willing to give up his own culture and submerge himself completely in the dominant, and in this case, oppressive culture. So assimilation usually would mean that if you move to, say, Italy from the United States, that culture is going to be different. You're going to learn their language and you are going to learn their culture and assimilate into it, meaning take more and more of their culture on and leave your culture behind. But with this one, they're talking about giving up their culture from wherever it is they are from in Africa and assimilating into a white society. Okay, so George says, oh, dear, dear, dear. Here we go. A lecture on the African past, on our great West African heritage. In 1 second, we will hear all about the great Ashanti empires, the great Songhay civilizations, and the great sculpture of Benin. And then some poetry in the Bantu. And the whole monologue will end with the word heritage. Let's face it, baby, your heritage is nothing but a bunch of raggedy-ass spirituals and some grass huts. Benita says, grass huts? Ruth crosses to her and forcibly pushes her toward the bedroom. See there? You're standing there in your splendid ignorance talking about people who were the first to smelt iron on the face of the earth. Ruth is pushing her to the door. The Ashanti were performing surgical operations when the English, Ruth pulls the door to with Benita on the other side and smiles graciously at George. Benita opens the door and shouts the end of the sentence at George. We're still tattooing themselves with blue dragons. And she goes back inside. Well, let me just say, George is African American as well, but obviously doesn't take on the feeling of that it's important to be true to where you come from. He more is assimilating towards the white culture because that does him well, because he comes from a rich Black family, and that's not something that you come across too often. Ruth says, have a seat, George. They both sit. Ruth folds her hands rather primly on her lap, determined to demonstrate the civilization of the family. Warm, ain't it? I mean, for September. Just like they always say about Chicago weather, if it's too hot or cold for you, just wait a minute and it'll change. She smiles happily at the cliche of cliches. Everybody say it's got to do with them bombs and things they keep setting off. Would you like a nice cold beer? George says, no, thank you. I don't care for beer. He looks at his watch. I hope she hurries up. What time is the show? Ruth said. It's an 8:30 curtain, George says. That's just Chicago, though. In New York, standard curtain time is 8:40. He's rather proud of this knowledge. He's a little uppity, I guess you would say. Haughty. Ruth says, you get to New York a lot? George says, oh, a few times a year. Ruth says, oh, that's nice. I've never been to New York. Walter enters. We feel he has relieved himself, but the edge of unreality is still with him. Walter says, New York ain't got nothing Chicago, ain't just a bunch of hustling people all squeezed up together being Eastern. He turns his face into a screw of displeasure. Oh, you've been, George asks. Plenty of times, Walter says. Ruth's shocked because he's lying. Walter Lee Younger. Walter stares her down. Plenty. What we got to drink in this house? Why don't you offer this man some refreshment? To George, they don't know how to entertain people in this house, man. George says, thank you. I don't really care for anything. Walter feels his head, sobriety coming. Where's Mama? Ruth says she ain't come back yet. Walter looks Murchison over from head to toe, scrutinizing his carefully casual tweed sports jacket over cashmere V-neck sweater, over soft eyelet shirt and tie, soft flax, finished off with white buckskin shoes. Why all you college boys wear them faggoty-looking white shoes? Ruth says, Walter Lee. George ignores the remark. Walter to Ruth, well, they look crazy as hell, white shoes, cold as it is. Ruth crushed. You have to excuse him. To George. Walter says, no, he don't. Excuse me for what? What you always excusing me for? I'll excuse myself when I need to be excused. They look as funny as them black knee socks beneath the wears out here all the time. It's the college style, Ruth said. Walter. Style, hell. She looks like she got burnt legs or something. Oh, Walter, Ruth said. Walter, an irritable mimic. Oh, Walter. To Murchison, he says, how's your old man making out? I understand you all going to buy that big hotel on the drive. He finds a beer in the refrigerator, wanders over to Murchison, sipping and wiping his lips with the back of his hand and straddling a chair backwards to talk to the other man. Shrewd move, he says. Your old man's all right, man. Tapping his head, half winking for emphasis. I mean, he knows how to operate. I mean, he thinks big, you know what I mean? I mean, for a homie, you know? But I think he's kind of running out of ideas. I'd like to talk to him. Listen, I got some plans that he could turn this city upside down. I mean, think like he does. Big. Invest big, gamble big, hell, lose big if you have to. You know what I mean. It's hard to find a man on this whole South Side who understands my kind of thinking. You dig? He scrutinizes Murchison again, drinks his beer, squints his eyes, and leans in close, confidential. Me and you ought to sit down and talk sometime. Man, I got me some ideas. George, with boredom. Yeah, sometimes we'll have to do that, Walter. Walter says, understanding the indifference, and he's offended. Yeah? Well, when you get the time, I know you a busy little boy. Ruth says, Walter, please. Walter's bitter. I know ain't nothing in this world as busy as you colored college boys with your fraternity pins and white shoes. Ruth covers her face in humiliation. Oh, Walter Lee. Walter says, I see you all the time with the books tucked under your arms going to your classes. And for what? What the hell are you learning over there? Filling up your heads, counting off on his fingers, with sociology and psychology. But they teaching you how to be a man, how to make over and run the world. They teaching you how to run a rubber plantation or steel mill? Nah. Just to talk proper and read books and wear them faggoty-looking white shoes. George looks at him with distaste, a little above it all. You're all whacked up with bitterness, man. Walter intently, almost quietly between his teeth, glaring at the boy. And you? Ain't you bitter? Ain't you just about had it yet? Don't you see no stars gleaming that you can't reach out and grab? You happy? You contented son of a bitch. You happy? You got it made, bitter? Man, I'm a volcano. Bitter? Here I am, a giant surrounded by ants. Ants who can't even understand what it is the giant's talking about. Ruth passionately. Oh, Walter, ain't you with nobody? Walter says, no, because ain't nobody with me, not even my own mother. Ruth says, Walter, that's a terrible thing to say. Benita enters, dressed for the evening in a cocktail dress and earrings, hair natural. George says, well, hey, you look great. Walter, seeing his sister's hair for the first time, what's the matter with your head? Benita's tired of the jokes. I cut it off, brother. Walter says, well, I'll be damned. So that's what they mean by the African bush. Benita says, ha ha, let's go, George. George looks at her. You know something? I like it. It's sharp. I mean, it really is. He helps her into her wrap. Ruth says, yes, I think so too. She goes to the mirror and starts to clutch at her hair. Walter says, oh no, you leave yours alone, baby. You might turn out to have a pin-shaped head or something. Benita says, see you all later. Ruth says, have a nice time. George says, thanks. Good night. Half out the door, he reopens to Walter. Good night, Prometheus. So Prometheus is a story that was Greek, and Prometheus brings the light from the fire of the gods down to people. And what that symbolizes is that, you know, he wanted to give people more knowledge and more power. And so George is alluding to the fact that, you know, Walter thinks that he can forge and make, you know, way for the Black community. Okay, so with that being said, on card 3, write what you think about your character based on how or she has acted in response to an obstacle. Feel free to use ideas from today's class, but develop them more fully with details from the text. So basically, you need to say, if you were working on, say, Travis, which you weren't, but Mama, Walter, Benita, or Ruth, okay? What your character, what you think about your character, okay, based upon how they react. Do you think that they're right? Do you think that they're a good person inside? Do you think that they're just, say if you talk about Walter, are they just angry because they just want to get ahead and they've been oppressed for so long that they've been held back because of the color of their skin? So if we talk about Benita wanting to be connected to her heritage, why does she feel that there's a big need for that, and to be true to herself and not assimilate into this society that she sees as being oppressive and trying to be white when you really can't fit in to begin with, because you can't take that color off your skin and be white. You are, and you should be proud of who you are. All right, so that's got to be in race, restate, answer, evidence, cite evidence, and explain. And then save and continue, go to card 4. All right, so compare the motivation of Walter and Benitha. So they want freedom to do what he or she wants. Is it only Walter? Is it only Benitha? Or is it both? If it's both, you click there. If it's Benitha, it's number 2. If it's Walter, it's number 1. They want money to achieve his or her goals. Is that Walter, Benitha, or both? Wants to be a doctor. Who wants to be a doctor? Click under that. Wants to go into business. Walter, Benitha, or both. Wants to feel connected to his or her racial heritage. Walter, Benitha, or both. Wants to impress or fit in with people who have more money. Walter, Benitha, or both. Wants to be seen as a scholar. Walter, Benitha, or both. And wants to be allowed to express his or her individual opinions and ideas. Walter, Benitha, or both. And you can refer to the text if you need to. Now we're going to go to card 5. Eventually, Walter joins in with Benitha's dance, which best describes how he seems to be feeling as he dances. A, like he's making fun of Benitha. B, like he's worried he can't dance. C, like it makes him feel part of something important. Or D, like he wants to do it better than his sister. So remember, he goes into this sequence that it's almost like it's in his head. He's dreaming about it. He's daydreaming and kind of acting it out. Card 6. During the dance, Walter and Benitha seem to A, compete with each other, B, understand each other, C, dislike each other, or D, ignore each other. So they're actually having this back and forth, and they're actually getting along. So which one would that be? And then click next. In card 7, this is number 5. What does George think of Benitha's costume? Kind of crazy, beautiful, not appropriate, meaningful, or perfect for their date. Choose 2 of them to drag and drop, and then click next. And the last one, what does Walter lie about when talking to George? That he's been to Africa, that he has already started a business, that he has been to New York, that he has more money than George. So just ignore letter E. Of the 4, A, B, C, or D, that he has been to Africa, that he's already started a business, that he has been to New York, or that he has more money than George. And then you're going to click hand in. So again, the 2 pieces that are going to be graded are the exit ticket and the solo. And we have finished or gone through each one of them. All right, so I hope that works, and I hope that it works for you and it helps you if you have missed out on class or if you need extra help and it's during the off times that I'm not online. If there are any questions that even further that you can't figure out with this video, please don't hesitate to hit me up on Talking Points or email me through Schoology. And if you are having issues with Amplify and you're not able to get on Amplify, use this video, answer the exit ticket, answer the solo questions, and then write it, type it all up and email it to me. I hope that you have a great weekend. And this is due on Sunday before midnight. I will see you guys soon.